Hi everyone, very good morning and good evening. So let me share my screen. Okay guys, so in the last session, so what we have done, so we saw that how to implement the validations, right? Today we are going to see what topic related to types. So there is, when it is coming to tables, right? In Snowflake, sorry guys, there is three different types. If you observe whatever the things we have created here, it can be a database, or it can be a schema, or it can be a table, whatever it may be. All these are permanent. Whatever we created, all these are permanent. Now here some three keywords here. One is permanent, another one is transient, another one is temporary. These are the three different things. So when it is coming to the permanent, right, this one, it is applicable for database, and it is applicable for schema, it is applicable for table. Now here, any object if you create, it can be a table, database, schema. When you create this permanent, it will have retention period. Retention period of, by default everything it will be have a 1 day. Retention period of maximum up to 90 days. We will come to that, what it mean by that. And then we will have fail safe of 7 days. It is applicable. 7 days of the fail safe it is applicable. And then there is a retention period of maximum up to 90 days. So this is permanent. So we will have a date, it is applicable for the database, it is applicable for the schema, and then it is going to applicable for the table also. Here retention period means how many days of the data we can go back and then check at that particular period of time. It means like a snapshot information for the historical data. How many days of the snapshot we can able to get it, that we will call it as a retention period. That is up to maximum 90 days. Maximum up to 90 days we will have. It means, for example, let's take any bank example of bank account. If you have a bank account and you wanted to check bank account is still operating, it is active, you wanted to check 1 week before, 1 week before, what all the transaction happened on that particular day. Now if you see your bank, your current balance will be available, your bank is active, I mean account is active. Now what is your requirement is, you wanted to check 1 week before what is your balance. If you check your current balance now, you can able to see the current balance now. But 1 week before balance, 1 week before transactions, how you will check? At that particular point of time, at that particular point of day, you can go to the bank statement, right? Bank statement, and then you can check for that particular day, right? There you can able to understand what exactly available, what has done at that particular time, right? What we are doing here, going back and then checking the data at that particular period of time, that is retention period. Don't get confused here. Anyway, the data once you loaded into the tables, it will be permanently available. For example, if you see the data from any table, star from EMP. This is the table data. Is this table when it is created? This table is created. Observe this. This table is created. It's not showing. Just a minute. Okay. For example, okay. See this one created 1 day ago. Any table you can see when it is created. Now, when it is coming to this table, when it has been created, let's assume this table is created 1 week before. 1 week before the table is created. Now, here, if you see the data here, this is your current data in the table. Now, we wanted to know 2 days before how the data looks like in the table. 2 days before, I wanted to see the data, how it looks like in this table. That period, how many days you can go back and then check the data in that particular table, that defines this retention period. Within the retention period only you can go back and then check the data what it is available. That we will call it as a time travel. We used to call it as time travel. You are going back historical data and then checking at that time what is available. Maximum how many days you can go back and then check? 90 days only. It means your bank statement maximum you can get it only for 3 months. Assume that only for the 3 months you can see the bank statement. Beyond that it is not possible. That is your retention period for the permanent table. And for example, what is fail safe here? Let's say after 3 months you got the bank statement for 3 months, but you wanted to go back beyond this. In your online account you don't have a control to go back beyond 3 months. Then how to do? In that case, if you wanted to do that beyond 3 months, you will have additional 7 days fail safe is available. What it will do is, for example, in your online account it is not possible to go back more than 3 months. Then you will go to the branch physically and then you will request your bank manager, I want more than 3 months, I need 1 more month or 2 months or 6 months, whatever it may be, you will request, right? So that is whose control? That is your bank manager's control, right? The same way, when it is coming to the fail safe, right? After completion of the 90 days time travel, you will have additionally 90 plus 7 days. This 7 days will be there by default for the permanent table. This is a fail safe. This will be controlled by Snowflake support team. As a user, we cannot able to access this. Remember this we will get certification question on this. Fail safe cannot be configured, cannot be controlled by the users. This only controlled by Snowflake support team. This is default for the permanent table. You cannot able to change anything. You cannot able to change anything. After the completion of the time travel retention period, the fail safe will be available. 7 extra days will be available. Any kind of disaster situations, if you want to get it back, anything, you will get it from the fail safe. You need to send a request to Snowflake support team. But for this retention period, we can able to get it back. That we will see how to work with the how to write the queries for this and all. Now here, this database schema and table retention period will be up to 90 days. When you create a database, so your schema will be created, it will inherited from database level. When your schema is created, Whatever the things you are creating under the schema, the tables, objects, it will be inherited from the schema level. It means your database is permanent. Your database is permanent. Whatever the schema you are going to create, by default schema also it will be permanent. And once the schema is created, whatever the table you are going to create, this will be inherited from the higher level, schema level. So it based on that which type it is. Schema is permanent, your table also it will be permanent. That's why you can see all this, the database, the schema, tables, whatever we created, all these are the permanent only. For example, if you see show databases, whatever the database it is available, see this database available. Now you can able to see this one. There is what you can see kind standard. What is this? Standard, right? This is permanent database. Now within this, if I observe show schemas, show schemas, this is related to schema, public schema. Observe this one. This is also, there is here it is not showing anything. This is related to permanent. This is related to permanent. If it is a transient, you will have an option called transient. We will see that. Now this is permanent. Now whatever the tables we are going to create here, show tables. Already we have created some tables, right? All these tables also, observe the option. See this one. By default, retention period is 1 day for every table, every database, every schema. By default, retention period will be 1 day only. And you can see the kind, observe the kind, what it is, table, right? If it is a transient, it will show us. So here the it is the transient. We will see that. So how we can able to check the things. Here we can able to understand that will be a transient table, but here this is a permanent table. It is not showing any option. Now see this. Now we wanted to create a transient database. If I create a transient database, your schema will be by default transient. The difference is, if it is a transient, right, what will happen is you can create the transient for databases, schema, table, but retention period max is 1 day. You cannot go beyond that. By default, it is 1 day, maximum also 1 day. You cannot go beyond that. And coming to this, there is no fail safe. There is no fail safe available for the transient. If you don't want any like a disaster situations, you don't want any kind of backup implementation, then we can use this transient table. Mostly in test environment and development environment, we will use transient table most of the time. In a production environment, we will use permanent table. Okay, we will use permanent table. Now here, if I create a transient database, by default schema also it will be transient. By default table also it will be transient. Transient is a lower level, permanent is a higher level. In transient database, it is not possible to create permanent database. I mean permanent schemas, permanent tables. It is not possible to create it. And when it is coming to the temporary, right? Here, this is applicable for only table. This is related to retention period maximum 1 day. Here there is no failsafe for the temporary also. But this is only applicable for the table. It is not applicable for database and it is not applicable for schema. But what is the difference here? See this, I can create a table with 1 day retention period. There is no failsafe here also. I can create same thing here also. But the difference is temporary tables, right? These are only valid for session, only valid for the session. Once the session is completed, this table is going to drop out. It will not be available. These tables by default it is going to drop out. We will see that. Now here this is temporary. It is applicable only for tables. It is not possible for the database schema. It is not possible for the to create it as a database as a schema. Only you can create temporary for only for the table only. Now this temporary table you can create under transient database possible, because transient is higher level than the temporary. Temporary table can be created under permanent database also possible. Transient database, transient tables can be created under permanent also. Now let me show you with example here. Now here this is a permanent database, right? In the permanent database, I wanted to create transient schema. Transient schema. Now this is the public is a permanent schema. Now I wanted to create transient schema. By default, if you create any schema, that will be a permanent only, because it will inherit from higher level. The database is permanent. Now here observe this. I wanted to create schema and then schema name. If I do this, what will happen is by default this will be a permanent schema. But if I want to create it as a transient, you need to give the keyword called transient. See this one? We have to give like this. Now where we are creating this class database, this is permanent database. Under the permanent database, I am creating a transient schema. Observe this one, created. Now if you observe, show schemas, see this, see the option, what it is showing, transient, transient. For all the permanent, transient, temporary, your retention period by default it is 1 day. By default it is 1 day. How to increase the retention period, how to create it, we will see that. Now transient we created here. Now if you refresh it, see this new schema is created under the permanent database. The advantage is this particular schema you created, this is transient schema, it will not have fail safe. If the fail safe is not available, right, it will reduce storage cost. How it will be reduced, we will discuss that. Now at this point, remember, it will reduce storage cost. And at the same time, retention period is 1 day, means it is not having 90 days. Here also it will reduce the storage cost. Here also it will reduce storage cost. So here, if you come to here, now we created transient schema. Now once you created the schema, by default, sorry, by default this worksheet is connected to, see this one, same schema it is connected, right? Which schema you created, for that particular schema this worksheet is connected, right? Now When you create a table here, by default, table which we are going to create here, that will be permanent table. Observe this, create table, and then we have to give, for example, I will give the table name. Just I am giving column name and data type. Now, which schema we are? New schema. This is transient schema, right? Now I am creating a table from where it will inherit from transient schema. What will be the table type? Transient only. Now here I am not specifying any keyword called transient, but even though it will be created as a transient table because we are under transient schema. Under transient schema, not possible to create permanent tables because permanent is a higher level. Remember this one. If I execute this, observe this one here, the table is created. Refresh it. You can able to see the table here. The table here. If I observe show tables, now the table is created. This is the table which you have created. Observe this one. What is the table type? In the new schema, what is the table type? Transient. Did you mention any keyword called transient here? No, because how it will done? It has inherited from the higher level. Inherited from higher level so that we can able to see this is the transient. Clear, right? Now, when it is coming to this, we can see this transient. Let's say there is one question here. They will give syntax like as we discussed in the under the transient database, you cannot create permanent table, not possible. If they give like this, create permanent table and then table name and then data type. If you give like this, in certification question they will ask which table type it will be created. If we are in a transient schema, which table type it will be created? Don't get confused here. In Snowflake, there is no keyword called permanent. There is no keyword. Permanent keyword is not there. Only by default it is a permanent. If it is a transient and temporary, we need to specify the keywords. But here, if you specify the permanent also, it will not work. So because it will throw error. It will throw error because of permanent keyword is not available in Snowflake. Remember this. It will throw error. It won't create any type of table. Even if you are in a, so which schema or which database, it doesn't matter. It will not create any table. Okay, understand. So this is permanent keyword is not available. Now what we have done, we created a transient schema, transient database, sorry, transient table under the permanent database, right? Now I wanted to create the transient database itself. Then what you can do is create transient database class underscore trans. Now observe this one. What is the keyword we have given here? Transient. We are giving transient keyword, right? Transient keyword we are giving. Now this particular transient keyword, we are creating database. Database name is this one. Now execute this. Observe transient created. The database is created. Observe this database now. Database is created. Now when you create a database in a worksheet, by default our worksheet is connected to the same database. Observe this. right? It is connected to the same database. Now here if you observe show databases, observe this one. This is the class underscore trans database. Observe the options here. What it is showing? Transient, right? Now in this class underscore transient, we have, see this, by default public schema is created. What about this schema? Schema also it will be a transient. See this? If you observe show schemas, this is the public schema which it is created under transient database, transient schema, right? By default, how it is inherited from higher level. Now, under this transient, it is not possible to create permanent schema because by default it will be inherited higher level, right? Generally, if I create schema and then new schema, if I create it here, what will happen normally? We are not specifying any keyword means that will be a permanent. But here where you are giving this creating schema, where you are creating, under which database we are creating under transient database. So what will happen to this schema? It will be also a transient schema only. It will be higher level is the transient, so that you will create it will get a transient schema only. Observe this one here, show schemas, show schemas. See this, what you observed, new schema which you created. See this, transient, right? This is transient. Now if I create a table here, now I wanted to create a table. If I create a table here, the table also it will be a transient, by default transient. Observe this, now we are creating a table. We created a table, we didn't specify any keyword. Now if you observe new schema, the table is created, by default table is created. Now if you observe the table type, show tables, observe this one, the table is created. What is the table? This is a transient, right? This is transient. Now I wanted to create a temporary table. You can create temporary table under permanent database, under transient database. You can create temporary table under permanent schema or transient schema. You can create it anywhere. You can create it. Now, if you observe, when we are creating temporary, we are going to give the keyword keyword called temporary. Just a minute. Okay. Now, let me sorry, guys. Let me show you. We will create a table. Let's insert the data also here. Now, where we are under transient schema, transient database. Now, observe, we are creating a temporary. Observe the keyword temporary. Temporary we are giving. Now we are creating temporary table. Temporary table is created. Now let's insert the data into the temporary table. This temporary table also by default retention period is 1 day. Now refresh it. You can able to see the temporary table. Now see this same temporary table. You can able to create under the permanent database also. And then in the permanent database, you can create transient tables and then permanent tables also. We will see that. Now, this is the table. Now observe this. Observe the behavior of the temporary table. See this? You can able to see the data, right? Now we are going to execute the same thing in the new worksheet. New worksheet. Observe this here. We are going to execute this under new worksheet. Observe what will happen. What it is telling. Does not exist or not authorized. See this in the new worksheet. You can see the transient database. You can see the transient schema. You can see the transient table. But whatever the temporary table which you created, that is not available here. That is not available because when you are executing this in a new worksheet, this is new session. That's the reason we used to call temporary table valid for only session. For example, with my user, with my session ID, I created a temporary table. Then with your user and then with your ID and then username, you are trying to access. You cannot able to see the temporary tables. These temporary tables, then what is the purpose of this? Only we will use it for the testing purpose. For example, let me explain. For example, you have a table guess. You need to do some testing on this. You need to do some validation. What you will do normally in any other day, as per the best practices, we won't do directly on this. You will create a new backup table. This is person 1. Person 1 is doing some validation. They have created backup table. And the another person also some doing, they are doing that things on testing. They created another test table. This created by the person 2. The same table they have taken as a backup for their testing purpose. Normally, what will happen when they created it? After the validations is done, they will send a mail to the manager. Yes, my validation is completed. It looks good. We will go ahead with the further steps. After that, we used to forget to drop these tables, right? In our traditional databases, it it's okay. Every 3 months once or every 6 months once, maybe you observed from your database admin team, they will circulate a mail. These are the unutilized tables, and these are the unutilized tables, and then these tables are databases or schemas, whatever it may be, not utilized by anyone. Now we are going to drop this one. If anyone is using, please reach out us. They will send a circulate email, right? Same thing if it happens here in Snowflake, what will happen? Snowflake is going to charge for the storage also, right? That's the reason if you think, okay, I wanted to create this table just for the testing purpose, then you can use temporary table. Then you can use the keyword called temporary for this. What will happen? This will not be stored permanently in your database. This will be dropped out after the completion of the session. This table is going to drop out. For example, observe this one. The session ID, you can see it here. Go to monitor. In the query history, let me click on session ID. Observe the session ID for this, for the first two. See this one. This session ID is different. This session ID is different. Whatever the queries we are executing in the same worksheet, that session ID is same, but this session ID is different. That's the reason the table is not available. Now, if I log out and then log in, here I can able to see the table, right? Here I can able to see the table in the main worksheet. We can see this. And if I log out and then log in, this table is going to drop out. Now observe this. I will log out and then log in again. Now in the same worksheet, now observe this. See this. I'm executing the same query. What happened now? Does not exist. What happened to the table which you created under the transient database? See this. Under this particular schema, permanent table we create, temporary we created, but temporary is not available now. See this, it is not available, it is dropped. That's the reason we will tell that it is only valid for a session. If I log out and then log in my session, then it will be gone. The table will not be saved permanently, only it is valid for a session. Clear, right? That's the purpose of temporary table. Now this temporary table, transient table, all can be created in your permanent database. That is possible. Now let's connect it to the permanent database and public schema, permanent schema, right? Now I wanted to create a permanent table here. Yes, we can create a permanent table. Sorry, temporary table. The temporary table is created under public. See this one, temporary table is available. Same way, I wanted to create a transient table also. Yes, we can do that. What you have to do here in case of here, you have to give transient and then transient. Now observe this. I created a transient table. Now see this one. Here this is a transient table. This is a temporary table. The same way, whatever the tables we are going to create without any keyword here, then that will be a permanent table. All the three it will be available on the permanent database and permanent schema. What happened if I log out and then log in? The temporary table will be gone. Transient table will be available. Permanent table will be available. What is the difference here? The transient table, it will have, there is no fail safe. And then, so maximum retention period is only 1 day. So how it will be beneficial? It will beneficial in storage cost. So when we are discussing about the partition mechanism, right, we are going to discuss about this, how this is going to work. Based on that, we will see that. And whatever the tables we created here, all the tables by default retention period, if you observe this temporary table, transient table, and then permanent tables, all the retention period will be 1 day only. Observe this one. Show tables. You can see this one. These are the temporary, and then this is transient, this is permanent, right? These are all things. These are the three types. Now observe this one: permanent table, temporary table, transient table. What about the retention period? If you observe, see this, all the retention period is one. All the retention period is one only. And then if the table is having any values, the data is available, then you can able to see the bytes. If the data is not available in the table, then that will be zero. Then that bytes will be zero. If the table is empty, bytes will be zero. So we will see that going forward, right? So when you will check this, and then If the table is having values, I mean, if the having the data, then the bytes will be occupied. We can, based on that, we can consider so whether it is occupying a storage or not, whether it is occupying storage or not. So what will happen to this temporary table after the session? If I log out and then log in again, this temporary table is going to drop out. Remember this. And under one more thing, under transient database, it is not possible to create permanent table. Under the transient schema, not possible to create permanent table. Only the transients table will be created. That's it, right? Under this transient or permanent, whatever it may be, both you can create temporary tables. So what is the higher level? Higher level is permanent. The lower level is transient. Next, so we will have a temporary when it is coming to the table types. This is the hierarchy. So based on the utilization, just remember, in test environment, development environment, most of the time we will use transient. In production environment, we will use permanent. And one more thing is, here we will see the retention period is up to 90 days, maximum 90 days. But it is not required to utilize maximum 90 days every time. Based on the requirement, we will use it. And how to, sorry, how to increase this retention period. So how to implement based on this mechanism, based on this retention period mechanism, we are going to use time travel. How to get the data, how this time travel is going to work, how we will create the retention period up to 90 days. All these things also we will see in the coming session, guys. Now let me come to the questions here. You can see some of the questions here. Okay. Fail safe is nothing but additional time it is available, additional 7 days available with Snowflake support team for disaster recovery situations. For example, let me give you, now we are operating this account, right? Something happened to this account. It has been, we lost this, it is corrupted. Then we need to get back our thing, right? Then if you reach out our Snowflake support team, they will get back within 7 days. The 7 day, within the 7 days period, if you reach them, they are going to give it back, the everything. Okay, it's they can able to restore it. That period we will call it as a fail safe. Default it will be available for Snowflake.
Dinesh, one question. So suppose the table has got say 5 years worth of data, okay? So does that retention period means like if we, within that, 90 days, if you want to restore the 5 years data, will that do it, or it's only you can go back until 90 days worth of data?
Don't get confused here, Manoj. The
Mm-hmm.
when it is coming to the historical data, right?
Uh-huh.
Historical data permanently it will be available in your tables. This retention period means only you can check 10 days before how the data looks like. For example, you are taking a like snaps in your mobile, your pics. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you are daily, you are let's assume daily you are taking a snaps. In mobile capacities, you can able to have the complete the pictures available in that your data. And if you wanted to go back and then check 5 days before how you are looking at that particular time period, then you can go and then you can check at that particular day how I am looking, right? So this capability is nothing but retention period. It means the table data permanently available. It can be a 5 years, it can be 10 years data, whatever you are going to store, it will be available permanently. But so what is our requirement is I wanted to see in the table 1 week before how it is looking, how the data is available at that particular time. I wanted to compare the current and then 1 week before data. Got it
Mhm.
right? That
Yeah.
capability is retention period.
And failsafe is just giving you additional 7 days for the admin team to restore the data.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So total 97 days we have got the protection.
Total 97 days.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
90 days we can able to do it from the user side. 7 days we need to send a request to Snowflake support team.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Retention period, Shravani, by default 1 day will be added to the table for any database or schema. If you want to go beyond that, we need to do it manually when we are creating the objects. We will see that in the coming session, how to modify this retention period, how to do that. If a transient database is created under the and schema created in the database, by default transient. Yes, exactly. Under the transient database, by default schema is a transient because it will inherit from the higher level. No need to specify anything. Transient to permanent, not possible, Shravani, because permanent is a higher level, right? Not possible. We cannot do that. When we select transient database under this,
Sir, one question on that. So can we convert from permanent to transient then?
converting means, see, you can create it. The new transient table, you can create it, you can inherit it, but the permanent table, whatever it is available, that will be there. That will not be converted. Converting is a different keyword. We cannot say that it is a converted. You can clone it. From the permanent, you can create another table as a transient. That is possible. From the
Mhm.
permanent, you can create another temporary table by utilizing the same data. That can be done. But we cannot say that that is a conversion. Okay,
Yeah.
because converting means the permanent completely transferring in the form of transient table. That is not possible.
Mhm. Got it.
Yeah,
When
Dinesh, I have one doubt on it. Like when we create a transition table from permanent table, and after
Mhm.
that I delete permanent table, what will happen to transition table?
It will be there.
Okay,
When you
it
create
will.
a new object, that new object will be there. Okay, it won't impact. Okay. In the cloning concept, we are going to discuss about these things. The cloning is a very powerful concept here. There we will get all these scenarios. When we create select transient database under this create schema without mentioning any schema, see, always it will inherit from higher level only. Okay, so if your database is transient, schema also it will be a transient. If your database is permanent, whatever you are going to create schema, that will be a by default. If you don't specify anything, that will be a permanent. Can we give retention days 0 minimum minimize? Yes, that is possible, Sridhar. We can do that. The 0 to 90 days, within this you can give anything. 0 is also possible. We can do that. Minimum is 0, default is 1 day, maximum is 90 days for the permanent table. Transient table can be available permanently in database, or this is also wiped. Transient will be available permanently until you drop. It will be available. Only the thing is the storage cost so will be reduced when it is coming to the transient. That retention is not available, so that the storage cost will be reduced. All the questions, right? So it will be answered when you implementing retention, how to create retention, how to get the time travel from the existing tables in the coming session. Then you will understand very clearly so how this is going to work, what is the advantage of this. At this time, just remember, this is for to take a backup or to implement a disaster recovery situations. We are going to so use this. That is nothing but our time travel concept. We used to call it as a time travel. Sure, I will give the control to you, Mandip. If you keep retention period 1 day, that is also equal to permanent. No, no. Permanent table is different. Permanent table, you will have a retention period. So by permanent table, what will happen is if you create it as a permanent table, Satish, by default it will be added fail safe. But the transient table, there is no fail safe. That's the difference. Basically, the editions which you are going to use it is most of the time, 99% of the time, it will be enterprise edition only. Okay, and then business critical edition. When it is coming to these editions and then table types, so there is no difference. Okay, it will be there for every edition. This retention period will be there, and the difference is related to like time travel implementation 90, the only the standard edition, right? That is a basic edition. There you cannot able to do the time travel, you cannot able to do the fail safe. Other than that, remaining editions it will be there. So no one will use standard edition. Okay, so enterprise edition, business critical edition, there is no difference. Okay, I will give the control to you, Mandeep. Just a minute, I will give access. I will stop sharing my screen.
Uh,
I given the control to you. Please share your screen, Mandeep.
can you see my screen?
No, not yet. Swap with, yes, we will discuss that. So if you wanted to rename the tables, Manoj, we will use this command called swap with. So you can like renaming in one table you wanted to rename with another table, then you can use it.
I'm not able to share my screen, Dinesh. Looks like I need to change some settings.
Are you using office laptop or
No, I'm
personal
using my
laptop?
personal laptop. So, but I'm not that familiar with Mac. My another
Oh,
laptop is
okay.
not working well.
Mhm. So what is the command you are giving there? You can text me here at least.
Okay.
So when we are installing CLI, right, you are talking about?
Yeah, I installed the CLI, Dinesh.
Okay. Hmm.
So I followed the document, Word document from the first
Okay.
class,
Okay. Hmm.
and I was able to install it. But I think there is a step where we need to enter our password, right?
Hmm.
After running this one, so that is not actually coming up.
Okay. I need to check on this with who is utilizing the Mac. Not sure. Generally, what will happen is you have given all the permissions in the Mac. Any restrictions is there?
No, I don't think there are no restrictions.
Mani, did you use the document which was given by, in the first session for Mac? Because I have been using Mac, so I enabled that command for exporting one command. So did you run that?
Yeah, I did. I
Okay,
don't know.
do one thing, Mandip. You can connect it to Manoj. Okay,
Okay.
personally, he will guide you.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Okay, guys. Any other questions? Okay, guys. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Thanks for your time.
Thank
Thank you all.
Mani, if you want, you can stay. We can discuss.
Okay, Manoj. Let me share my screen. I don't
Yeah,
know
go
why.
ahead. Can you go to your share option and try to see if you can do the sharing thing?
Yeah, I'm doing that. It is showing me open system settings, security, and privacy to grant access for sharing. Let me do that.
So you're trying to connect to SnowSQL?
SnowSQL, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I can, yeah, see 1 second. Let me, if you want, yeah, I'm able to see your screen. Yeah.
Okay, now it's good. So this is the document, right, Manoj? That
1 second. Let me open the document which I was saying. Hold on. Yeah, can you open that, the link, drive link, which, Dinesh and team has given to us? Are you sharing, Mani?
yeah.
I don't see the drive thing. I think it's just, paused in between. Okay.
Open system. Hold on. Can you see my screen?
No. Otherwise, let me do this. Let me share my screen. And once, you see it, I will try to help you which document I'm referring to. Let me know if you're able to see my screen. Okay.
Okay.
Mani, let me try it. So I turned it on. Okay, let me give that. It's saying like if I want to share, I would need to first quit because recording is going on, I believe so.
Yeah.
So Mani, what I'm saying is in that